Good morning and welcome to another episode of Enlightenment through Understanding and Wisdom with your host, Jacob Strong. How's everybody doing today? Hopefully, y'all are doing good. Well, I wanted to talk about some things that actually my coworker noted to me. I don't, follow, celebrities much or anything like that. But it was pretty interesting when he recognized some similarities to this individual's case that seemed to line up with my case quite significantly. So before we get into any of that, I want to be very clear on this show that narcissistic abuse is not a gender issue. It is a human condition. So even though I reference specific genders that are very evidently abusing their spouses narcissistically, that doesn't mean that it is a gender issue. And we keep getting hung up on that, and there's so much hate going around on the internet from both sides and not recognizing the real problem. Um, the governor of our state of Montana was on the news the other day, and he talked about they're trying to open a mental hospital here in Billings. And due to the quote mental illness crisis that's being faced in this country, unquote, and it's the government that's building platforms for people to become mentally unstable for these situations. And it's really scary and sad because we can see it's unbounding effect on how it's affecting people and what's happening with that particular because we refuse to acknowledge, in particular, narcissistic abuse. So back to what I wanted to talk about today is Travis Hunter. I don't know if you all have followed his case. And again, I don't want to pick sides because I do not personally know the case, and there is obviously a lot of false information on the internet anymore. There's very little real information that you can find on the internet. Just ask the internet a true or false question. It will give you 18,675,000 results for an answer. So that there tells you that there is no truth that can be discerned from the internet without either personally being involved with the case or doing massive digging with the case, and then you're still not going to get to the truth because the government again hides so much of the case. Again, just like my case, a lot of it is sealed from the public, which is very disturbing because what do you have to hide if you're that worried about it? Um, so with that being said, again, what I want to focus on is the patterns of what is being said online and how they fall in line with what happened to me and how the government is not doing anything about it, and in fact is aiding and abetting the narcissist in their manipulation tactics. They are the flying monkey, as per se, to the abuser. Um, so of course, one of the things that really stood out to me was this woman, according to the internet, refused to sign a prenup with Travis Hunter. And so I never asked my ex-wife to sign a prenup, but I know that she would not have signed a prenup had I have asked her to. And she would have pulled everything out of her quote religion as to why she shouldn't. And so anyway, so this woman, they've been married for less than a year. He just signed a contract for $80 million. Travis Hunter did, and she's asking for 40 million of it for less than a year in the relationship. Um, there is some question as to whether she is pregnant or not. And of course, there's all these accusations that she's cheating online and that sort of stuff. So again, I don't want to get into that because, I can't verify any of that. However, one thing that keeps being mentioned and keeps standing out is her quote, devotion to her faith, her new found devotion to Jesus and God that she is proclaiming. And of course, now she has stated that she is getting off the internet. Um, so, from what I can tell, she has actually exclaimed herself this pronunciation for her newfound faith. And of course, again, where in her quote religion does it okay divorcing your spouse after less than a year of marriage and then uh, trying to acquire half of his wealth that he will get over the next 20 years of playing football. And again, that's where the legal system does not fall in line with justice. It just falls in line with what's legal and what's not. They don't care about specifics. And that's a real problem because then you have these gold diggers. She has been labeled a gold digger by the majority of online users. So I am using that term because that's what other people are using as well. And so we can see that it's very evident that that there is a pattern of narcissistic abuse. Of course, now she is claiming that she is violent. Ironically, after 6 years of being with my ex, after I filed for divorce and after I had her removed from my property and had a restraining order against her due to her violent abuse and trying to strangle me, then of course she claimed the same thing. So again, the problem is lies are not being prosecuted in courts either. To perjure yourself is not being prosecuted. Um, Again, when I filed one of my motions and I presented evidence that my ex-wife was arrested in Memphis, Tennessee, and held without bond, the only way that you can get held without bond is when you're a public safety factor or you're a safety factor to an individual. So, of course, my ex got arrested 4 times, and after presenting that in my case, the judge simply said, "So what that she lied? What's that have to do with anything?" And so that's where we're at. It's like, oh my goodness. Now we are just seeing a a pattern of narcissistic abuse by the government against individuals because they're not doing their due diligence and ordering psych evals. Psych eval should be ordered for both sides to determine was he violent in the relationship. And if he was violent in the relationship that led to her filing for divorce, does that still entitle her, after only a year of marriage, to over half of his earnings, which he has yet to earn. And so again, I know that, we all make mistakes. Look at what I did. I married a very violent, narcissistic, abusive woman. And, and so I have to understand that, that is a costly mistake to have made, but I shouldn't have to pay for that for the rest of my life. Um, Even though it's used up a quarter of my life to date, actually almost half of my life to date, but a good quarter of it. Um, so with that being said, um, we can see some very disturbing similarities with Travis Hunter's case to my case, and the fact that this woman is using a religion to conceal her real motive, which was to obtain half of his estate and future estate, while simply not having to, offer any emotional or loyalty or anything else with that. And again, most of this is gotten from the internet. I do not personally know this case. So that's where it makes it a little bit difficult because being an empath, you can discern some things from the internet. You can discern some things from TV. You can discern some things from facial expressions, how a person conducts themselves. However, a lot of what an empath picks up on is energy that's conveyed one on one or even in a crowd. They can discern that energy. And so that's why, like I said, I want to be, very, very careful and try not to weigh in on this, um, but to bring awareness and to raise awareness that the government needs to, instead of just saying, okay, 50-50, that's Florida law, 50-50, of stuff that's acquired during the relationship, unless there's extenuating circumstances. And again, that's where she is capitalizing on this domestic abuse portion. And um, so the government needs to step in and say, we're going to bring in a psychologist for each one, an unbiased psychologist for each side, and discern, where the fault lies, and could this have been um, corrected? Could this have been fixed and resolved? And and that's not what they're going to do. We already know they're not going to. They don't show a pattern of trying to fix mental illness. They just want to open more hospitals and um, put people into quote unquote mental hospitals and insane asylums just so that they can get the funding, so that they can um, state a reason why they need all these hospitals. And you can see somewhat of the structure of how this government is set up as to why that is necessary. Um, the United States is obviously a corporation. I think most of us are aware of that and know that now that this country is a corporation, it's a business. So, in order to justify its debt to the world, um, they actually need individuals to be mentally um, committed to mental hospitals and to insane asylums so that they can, justify um, their flat disregard for discipline and order and spending their money, spending the world's money. And so you know, again, that kind of shows why the government doesn't want to fix anything here, and in fact wants to promote more mental illness, wants to promote more people going into hospitals, wants to build more mental hospitals, build bigger ones here in Billings, build more in Billings. And so, again, it's the flying monkey problem. The government has now found individuals that are wanting to do this, and they're needing participants. My defense attorney during my trial, she told me, she said, because she doesn't understand how this corporation of the U.S. government works, she told me, she said, I cannot believe after what you've been through and after reading the court documents that the prosecutor wouldn't just throw the book down and say, look, we messed up. And she was shocked, completely shocked, because even she couldn't believe that a guy like me, who's had no criminal priors, nothing outside of traffic tickets, could be in this position of going to federal prison for saving his child from a very narcissistic, abusive, and neglectful woman. And so, of course, at the time that I had this attorney, I didn't fully understand either. Since going through all of this and recognizing the legal system for what it is, how corrupt it is, and recognizing its role in the world, in the world view, that's when I realized, there's not much hope for this country if they don't turn around. And unfortunately, because this country is a corporation, it isn't going to turn around. They've already developed a business plan and they're sticking to it, and that's their business plan. And so yeah. So I just wanted to share that with you all today, and I hope this helps your understanding as to why narcissistic abuse is being allowed, not only allowed, but promoted by the legal system, why it's being expounded upon and used, and how they're using it to further the U.S. corporations standing on the world stage, on the world screen. Um, so anyway, yeah, again, I hope this helps, and tune in later for more information, and hopefully we can bring awareness, and people will start listening and waking up to what's really going on in this country and in the world as we know it. All right, y'all have a good day, and thank you for tuning in.